You begin by feeling the simple weight of your body, resting wherever you are, the floor holding you with steady confidence. At first, it feels like nothing is moving, like the earth itself has paused to let you breathe. But as you sit with the stillness, a subtle awareness opens within you. You sense something deeper, something older, something that hums beneath the surface even when everything around you feels quiet. It is the gentle reminder that the earth is never truly still. It shifts and breathes in ways too slow for the eye to catch, yet constant enough to shape every landscape you've ever known. You picture the ground beneath you not as a single, solid block of stone, but as a vast patchwork, pieces of rock and soil layered over countless generations. Every grain of sand, every pebble, every slab you've walked upon has its own long history. And beneath that familiar layer, the crust stretches outward like an enormous quilt, stitched together by forces working far below your reach. You imagine those stitches glowing faintly with warmth, as if lit from within by the earth's own heartbeat. You may not feel that warmth on your skin, but the ground carries it, holding the story of more than 4 billion years. As you breathe softly, you imagine placing your hand on the surface of the earth somewhere quiet, on cool stone, damp soil, or a patch of grass stirred gently by evening wind. In that moment, you can almost sense the slow and patient motion beneath your palm. Not a vibration, not a shake, but a quiet certainty that the planet is alive with motion. The continents are drifting, rearranging themselves with the gentlest determination. They move so slowly that your entire lifetime is only a single breath in their journey. But over millions of years, they glide across the globe like great rafts on a deep and hidden sea. You let yourself imagine that sea now, the mantle beneath the crust, warm and soft and moving in currents you cannot see. The crust rests on top of it like floating islands, held by its slow movements. Even if the ground beneath you feels still, you remember that stillness is only a matter of scale. Something moving a few centimeters in a year feels frozen to your senses, yet shapes mountains, oceans, and continents over the vast sweep of time. The ground's patience becomes almost comforting, like a lullaby whispered over millennia. You draw your attention again to your body, noticing how you rise and fall with each quiet breath. Your breathing has its own rhythm, unhurried and gentle. You imagine the earth beneath you breathing too, rising slightly as heat shifts through the mantle, settling again as the crust cools in certain places. It feels strange to imagine a planet breathing, but there is a soft truth hidden in the idea. The earth expands, contracts, moves, and changes in rhythms that echo the cycles of life. Your breath lasts seconds. The planet's breath lasts ages. Yet the feeling is the same. A steady flow, a calming pattern, a reminder that motion does not need to be rushed to matter. As your awareness deepens, you picture yourself lying somewhere beneath an open sky, perhaps on a quiet hillside or near a shoreline where waves kiss the land with their timeless patience. From here, the earth feels peaceful, like a companion that has been carrying you long before you understood its patterns. You picture the crust gently curving beneath you, its layers stacked like pages of a book written by time itself. Each page tells the story of a different world. Ancient oceans, towering mountains now worn to dust, forests that lived and died long before your kind ever appeared. And through all of it, the ground shifted slowly beneath those changing worlds, guiding them from one age to the next. You soften your thoughts and imagine this shifting not as something dramatic or violent, but as a steady, purposeful journey. Continents drift apart like friends slowly stepping backward to admire the space between them. Other continents move closer, meeting in a slow embrace that takes millions of years. Nothing rushes, nothing forces. It is all gentle, patient, inevitable. Even the tallest mountains begin as slow, almost imperceptible rises, tiny upward nudges accumulating across eons. The earth teaches you something in its slowness, that change does not lose its power when it moves quietly. You picture the ground beneath a forest, where roots reach down like fingers seeking the earth's whispered memory. Trees grow for centuries, unaware of the slow currents far beneath them. Animals come and go. Seasons paint the world again and again. Yet beneath all this life, the same slow drifting continues. The crust shifts like a sleeping giant turning under a blanket, never waking, never rushing, but always in motion. You sense that you, too, are resting on this quiet turning, part of its rhythm even when you don't notice it. Your thoughts drift now toward the small movements that shape your own life. The rise of your chest as you breathe. The soft easing of your muscles when you relax. The quiet shifts in your mind as you let go of tension and let calmness settle in. These motions are almost invisible to others, but they shape the way you feel, the way you rest, the way you experience your world. In this way, you are not so different from the earth beneath you. Your quiet changes hold great meaning, even if no one else sees them. You imagine sitting at the edge of a vast landscape, maybe an ancient valley or a slow-moving shoreline, and letting your awareness sink deeper into the earth's history. Mountains rise, rivers carve their paths, deserts bloom and fade. Everything transforms, but nothing does so quickly. The earth is patient with itself. It takes its time becoming what it needs to be. As you picture these slow movements, you begin to feel a gentle connection between your own patience and the planet's. You are part of a story written slowly, line by line, shift by shift. Now you let your thoughts drift toward the center of the planet, down into the layers you cannot see. You picture the crust as only the outermost skin of a world filled with heat, motion, and uncanny softness. You feel the curiosity rising inside you. If the ground beneath you is only one layer, what lies below it? What hidden worlds are stacked beneath your feet, warm and constant and alive with slow movement? You pause on that question, letting it settle like a stone dropped into deep water. You don't rush the answer. You let it echo gently in your mind, opening the gateway to the journey that follows. For now, you rest with the awareness that the earth beneath you is not still, not silent, not simple. It is a restless, patient companion carrying you through time, inviting you softly to look deeper, to listen more closely, to wonder what waits below the quiet ground that holds you. And as your mind drifts toward that unseen depth, you feel the first stirrings of curiosity for what lies within the earth's hidden layers. You sense that the stillness you feel is only the beginning of a much deeper story, one that unfolds quietly just beneath the surface, waiting for you to step gently into it. You begin by imagining the earth as something both familiar and mysterious, like a world you have walked on for years but never truly seen beneath its surface. As you rest in this quiet moment, you allow your mind to soften and drift inward, sinking gently below the ground that supports you. You picture the planet as if it were sliced open with care, not in a harsh or scientific way, but like revealing the layers of a warm, glowing fruit. Each layer feels alive with its own quiet presence, each one holding a piece of the earth's ancient memory. You start with the crust, the layer you know best, though you rarely think about it. It feels thin now, like a delicate skin stretched over something much deeper. You imagine it extending beneath cities, forests, oceans, and mountains, a patchwork of stone that carries the weight of everything you see. It is solid enough to feel safe, yet fragile enough to crack, fold, and drift over time. As you picture it, the crust becomes less like hard rock and more like a protective shell, cool and steady, offering you a place to stand while the world continues its slow internal motion. Beneath the crust, your attention moves naturally into the mantle, where warmth begins to glow softly. You picture it not as a blazing inferno, but as a slow, shimmering sea of rock that moves with the patience of something ancient and unhurried. Here, the earth feels like it has a heartbeat, a slow and steady rhythm shaped by heat rising from deep within. The mantle is vast, far thicker than the crust, stretching downward like a world of its own. Even though its rocks are solid, they flow over long spans of time, creating currents that gently push and pull the continents above. The more you imagine it, the more the mantle begins to feel like a place of quiet transformation. You sense the way heat travels upward in wide, soft currents, lifting some regions gently and letting others sink. The boundaries blur here, where rock softens and shifts without breaking apart. You feel the energy rising slowly, carrying stories from deep inside the earth up toward the surface. It is a journey that takes millions of years, yet it moves with such grace that it feels almost like a meditation, a slow exhale of the planet's warm breath. As you drift deeper, the light in your imagination grows warmer and more intense, and you arrive at the outer core. Here, the world becomes liquid, but not like water or any liquid you've known. It feels dense, heavy, powerful, metal melted into motion. You picture the outer core swirling in great rivers of molten iron and nickel, flowing in circles that generate the magnetic field protecting the planet. This field, though invisible, shields you from cosmic winds and solar storms, a quiet guardian you never see but always rely on. You feel a strange comfort knowing that deep within the Earth, this liquid metal moves tirelessly to keep the planet safe. Then, at the very center of everything, you reach the inner core. It shines in your mind like a solid sphere of light, glowing with the pressure of the entire planet resting upon it. Even though it is made of iron, it feels almost like a star trapped within the Earth. A dense, brilliant heart that pulses with heat older than the oceans or the mountains or even the continents themselves. You sense the stillness there, the calm at the center of immense forces, and it brings a quiet ease to your breathing. The inner core anchors everything, holding the world steady even as everything above it shifts and transforms. As you rest with this vision of the Earth's layers, you begin to sense how each one supports the others. The crust depends on the mantle's slow movement to drift and reshape itself. The mantle depends on the core's heat to flow and circulate. And the core relies on the pressure of all the layers above it to stay solid in its center. It is like a long, patient conversation happening deep within the planet, each layer listening, responding, balancing, and influencing the others in a rhythm that spans billions of years. You take a slow breath and imagine how these layers feel beneath you right now, even though you cannot see them. The crust holds you with its steady confidence. The mantle turns beneath it like a gentle tide. The outer core swirls with protective power, and the inner core glows with a light you will never touch yet somehow feel connected to. The Earth becomes less of a structure and more of a living presence, a companion carrying you through time with its layered heart. As you continue to imagine these hidden worlds beneath your feet, a curiosity begins to whisper inside you. You sense that the boundary between the crust and the mantle is not solid or simple, but a place where deep forces rise in slow cycles. You begin to wonder how these currents move, how they push the continents, how they shape the mountains and oceans you see far above. It feels like the beginning of another journey, one that leads you deeper into the slow, powerful movements of the mantle itself, where time stretches out like an endless horizon and the Earth reveals the rhythm of its ancient dance. You linger for a moment in this imagined cross-section of the planet, letting the layers settle into your awareness like gentle colors stacked in a calm gradient. The more you picture them, the more the Earth feels like a quiet companion with a deep and steady inner life. Each layer becomes a chapter in the planet's long story, one shaped not by quick events, but by slow, confident rhythms that continue whether you notice them or not. You imagine the crust again, thin but resilient, stretching beneath every landscape you've ever seen. Beneath it, the mantle glows with patient warmth, holding currents that rise and fall like slow tides. Below that, the outer core moves in broad, swirling loops, shaping the invisible shield that protects every living thing. And at the center, the inner core remains solid and unwavering, a bright anchor at the heart of all motion. As you rest in this vision, you sense how connected the layers are, how each depends on the one beneath it, how each shapes the one above. The crust would not drift without the mantle's currents. The mantle would not flow without the core's heat. And the core would not shine without the immense pressure of all the layers surrounding it. The planet works as a single, patient system, each part supporting the rest without hurry. You take another slow breath and imagine these layers beneath you right now, steady and ancient. Even though you cannot see them, you can feel the comfort of their presence. The warmth rising from the deep mantle, the stability offered by the core, the gentle platform of the crust holding your weight. These hidden worlds remind you that much of what supports you in life is unseen, yet always present, always at work. As the image softens in your mind, a quiet curiosity begins to bloom. You feel yourself wondering how the mantle's warm currents really move, how something as solid as rock can flow like honey over millions of years, guiding the continents on their slow and wandering paths. This question glows gently at the edge of your thoughts, inviting you into the next chapter, where the Earth's deep, ancient currents wait to reveal their slow and steady dance. You feel the mantle calling you gently now. You begin this chapter by letting your awareness sink gently beneath the crust, past the familiar solid ground you've always known, into a place where the Earth moves in ways your senses were never designed to detect. Here, in the mantle's quiet depth, rock is no longer the rigid, unchanging material you imagine beneath your feet. Instead, it softens into something almost alive, so slow, so patient, that its motion feels more like a drifting thought than a physical force. You picture it as honey warmed by time, thick and luminous, flowing with a purpose that stretches far beyond a human lifetime. The mantle surrounds you in this imagination like a vast ocean of stone, gently rising and falling in currents powered by deep, ancient heat. You sense these currents first as subtle shifts, like warm breezes moving through a forest at dusk. Over ages, these shifts become loops of motion, great circles of rising and sinking rock, each one completing its journey over millions of years. You imagine watching one of these loops from above, as if gazing down on a slow celestial ballet performed not by stars, but by the very foundation of continents. As your awareness drifts deeper into this imagined mantle, you begin to understand the source of its movement. Heat from the core rises upward in shimmering waves, lifting the warmer, softer rock toward the surface. As it reaches cooler regions near the crust, it spreads outward, like warm water reaching the edge of a calm pool. Eventually, the cooling rock sinks once more, returning downward to be reheated. This cycle repeats endlessly, an ancient, steady breath the Earth has been taking long before life ever emerged. You imagine yourself floating gently on one of these rising currents, carried upward not by speed, but by patience. There is no urgency here, no rush. The mantle teaches you that motion can be meaningful even when slow, that change can unfold so gradually you only see its results after ages have passed. This slowness feels calming, like a reminder that not everything in life needs to happen quickly to matter. You picture the continents far above you, drifting on the surface like rafts guided by the mantle's soft hands. In your mind, these currents appear as gentle spirals glowing with warm, golden light. Each spiral reaches upward to touch the base of the crust, nudging it with a quiet persistence. Some spirals pull plates apart, others push them together, others still slide past one another with the patience of drifting clouds. You sense how these motions sculpt the face of the planet, creating new oceans, raising mountain ranges, opening rifts that invite magma to rise and cool into new stone. All of it begins here, in this slow dance hidden beneath your feet. You imagine now the texture of this flowing rock. It is solid enough to break tools, yet soft enough to bend like warm wax over long spans of time. You picture placing your hand on it, not to feel heat or danger, but to sense its slow rhythm. You imagine feeling a pulse within it, not like the quick beating of a human heart, but like the gradual swell and fall of a tide that takes thousands of years to rise. This pulse becomes the Earth's own heartbeat, a reminder that the planet is not static, but alive with movement and warmth. As you float in this imagined mantle, you begin to see how the flow of heat shapes the planet's outer crust. Where rising currents push upward, the crust stretches and cracks, creating new seafloor. Where sinking currents pull downward, the crust is drawn into the deep earth, melting and becoming part of the mantle once more. The planet recycles itself slowly, endlessly, with a grace that feels almost comforting. Nothing is lost. Everything is transformed over time. You sense how this long cycle mirrors the quiet transformations in your own life. Experiences rising, spreading, sinking, and returning in new forms. You let your attention drift across the mantle's vast expanse, noticing how no two regions flow exactly the same way. Some currents rise stronger and warmer, while others drift gently and quietly. Some feed spreading ridges beneath oceans, while others tug continents toward each other. You picture these currents like invisible rivers, branching beneath the surface of the world, each one playing its part in guiding the slow rearrangement of continents. You begin to appreciate the patience of this process. A single convection cycle may take tens of millions of years to complete, yet it never falters. It continues its slow, steady rhythm regardless of what happens on the surface. The rise and fall of civilizations, the drift of species, the shifting climates. The mantle holds a timeline so vast that human lifetimes feel like single sparks within its quiet glow. Instead of feeling small in this comparison, you feel soothed. The mantle reminds you that the world is not in a hurry, and that you do not need to be either. You imagine now drifting upward again, carried slowly by a warm current rising from the deep mantle toward the base of the crust. You feel the motion as a gentle lift beneath you, almost like being carried by a soft thermal breeze. As you rise, you picture the continents above responding to this subtle force. A ridge in the ocean floor forms. Magma wells upward to create new stone. The surface expands slightly, almost imperceptibly. Everything moves, yet nothing rushes. You let this image settle into you, the sense of being part of a much larger rhythm, a flow that continues whether or not you notice it. The mantle becomes a symbol of patient transformation, of change that begins quietly and unfolds with steady intention. You allow this symbol to rest within you, offering comfort and calm. As you near the boundary between the mantle and the crust in your imagination, you feel a lingering curiosity. If the mantle's slow dance shapes the continents, what shapes the tectonic plates themselves? What determines how they drift, how they collide, how they slide past each other with such quiet power? You pause at this threshold, sensing that the story of the plates is only beginning. Their movements, though born from the mantle's patient breath, carry their own mysteries. You sense their edges pressing, pulling, drifting, shaping the world in ways both subtle and grand. Each plate holds a history written in stone, and each boundary whispers a different tale. As you rise toward the crust, you carry with you a calm anticipation, knowing the next part of your journey will reveal how these vast rafts of rock respond to the mantle's slow, guiding hands. And so your journey gently continues onward. You begin this chapter by imagining the solid ground beneath you stretching outward, not as a single unbroken shell, but as a collection of immense rafts drifting slowly atop the mantle's patient currents. These rafts, the tectonic plates, move with a calmness so deep that their journeys unfold across millions of years, far beyond the rhythm of your waking life. As you settle into this thought, you sense how the continents and oceans ride gently on these slabs of stone, like quiet travelers guided by unseen forces. You picture the plates from above, as if you are floating high above the planet. The earth becomes a mosaic of pieces, each plate fitting beside the next in shapes both smooth and jagged. You imagine the boundaries traced in soft glowing lines, revealing where one raft meets another. Some lines stretch across the ocean floor, while others run through mountain ranges and distant valleys. All of them whisper of movement, connection, and change. As you drift closer in your mind, you feel how the plates interact. Some drift apart, creating rifts where new crust rises quietly from the mantle. You imagine warm rock emerging like soft candle wax, spreading outward to form new ocean floor. Other plates press toward one another, colliding slowly, building mountains grain by grain. At some boundaries, plates slide gently past each other, their motion subtle but persistent, like two calm breaths passing in opposite directions. These interactions feel almost conversational, as though the plates are speaking through touch. You imagine their movements not as violent clashes but as long, deliberate gestures, each shift a patient shaping of the world. The mountains you know, the coastlines you've walked, the valleys carved by ancient rivers, all owe their form to the quiet restlessness of these drifting rafts. You let yourself feel the scale of their motion now. A plate might move only a few centimeters in a year, yet over tens of millions of years, this small motion carries continents across oceans. You picture a single fingertip tracing a slow line through sand, so slow you can barely see the motion. But if you returned ages later, you would find the line stretching far across the shore. In this way, the plates write the story of the Earth across deep time. Beneath these plates, you sense the mantle's gentle convection currents pushing, pulling, and guiding their paths. Some plates are carried apart by rising heat, while others are drawn downward where cold, dense crust sinks back into the mantle. You imagine this sinking as a slow descent, an ancient slab returning home after a long journey across the planet's surface. The cycle feels peaceful, like an endless breath that renews itself without hurry. As you envision this, you realize each plate has its own personality shaped by its motion. Oceanic plates, thin and dense, glide smoothly beneath their continental counterparts. Continental plates, thicker and lighter, float higher like gentle rafts of buoyant stone. They carry the shapes of continents, their ridges, their plains, their ancient scars. You sense how every landscape you know rests on a plate that has been moving since long before the first humans looked to the horizon. You imagine now drifting alongside one of these plates as it glides across the mantle. The journey is slow, steady, and calming. You feel no urgency, no sudden shifts, only a quiet forward motion. You picture continents passing through different climates as they travel, shifting ecosystems, guiding the evolution of species. You imagine forests growing where deserts once stood, mountains rising where oceans once rolled. All of this change unfolds at a pace gentle enough to lull you into deeper relaxation. As you observe the plates' wandering paths, you notice how their boundaries shape the world in subtle but powerful ways. Where two plates diverge, you sense the creation of new crust, fresh stone cooling into patterns that will last for ages. Where plates converge, mountains lift slowly, their peaks rising toward the sky in delicate increments. Where they slide past each other, you feel a quiet tension, a reminder that even the slowest motions can hold potential energy. You picture these boundaries as thresholds, places where the earth reveals its hidden dynamism. Standing at one in your imagination, you feel the crust beneath your feet gently shifting. The world is not rigid but flexible, capable of change even when the motion is too slow to see. You let this awareness soften something inside you, reminding you that your own life can change quietly too, without dramatic leaps. As you drift higher in your thoughts, you imagine seeing the earth through time-lapse vision. The plates drift like petals carried on a slow-moving stream. Continents split apart, forming new coastlines. Islands rise from volcanic arcs along plate boundaries. Mountain ranges grow like slow breaths lifting the land. You feel the beauty of this long transformation, the artistry shaped by patience and time. The plate's motion also affects the oceans. As they rearrange the shape of the seafloor, currents shift, climates change, and new patterns of life emerge. You sense how interconnected everything is, how the drifting of stone can influence where rains fall, where species migrate, where civilizations eventually form. The earth becomes a single living pattern, woven from the movement of these great rafts. Now you imagine placing your hand on the surface of one of these plates, not to feel movement, but to feel steadiness. The surface feels calm, grounded, familiar. Yet beneath that calm lies the journey, the drift, the slow reshaping of the world. This combination of stillness and motion comforts you. It reminds you that you can feel stable even while life moves beneath you in subtle ways. You let this thought settle into your breath. As you inhale, you imagine the plate's slow drift. As you exhale, you imagine releasing any tension about things that change slowly. You realize now that the earth has always moved beneath you, and yet it supports you with unwavering steadiness. Its motion does not threaten you. It guides the world gently forward. As your awareness rests on this idea, you feel something soft within you opening, a sense of connection to the deep, steady processes shaping your world. You no longer see the continents as fixed shapes, but as travelers carried on ancient paths. You imagine them drifting into new arrangements long after your own lifetime, yet the calmness of their journey feels reassuring, not uncertain. The plates teach you patience. They teach you that movement does not need to be fast to be meaningful. They teach you that the world is always becoming, always shifting, always finding new forms. And as you absorb this lesson, you feel yourself becoming more at ease, more willing to trust the slow unfolding of time. You sense now the faint pull of the next chapter waiting, the story of what happens where these plates meet, how their touch shapes mountains, oceans, and the edges of the world. The boundaries are calling you with a quiet, steady voice, inviting you to step closer and listen. Beneath your quiet breathing, the earth continues its slow symphony. You feel yourself sinking once more into its rhythm, sensing the great plates drifting beneath continents and oceans. They press, stretch, collide, and slide, each boundary carrying its own story, its own secret language written into stone. You remember what you have learned. The crust is not a single shell but a mosaic of immense slabs, each drifting atop the mantle's soft, swirling currents. Now, deeper in your journey, you begin to sense how these borders between plates sculpt almost everything you see on the surface: mountains, oceans, earthquakes, islands, even the climate that settles across entire continents. You start at the edges where plates come together, the convergent boundaries. Here, the earth folds upon itself like heavy cloth being pushed and wrinkled. You picture the Himalayas, rising higher each year as the Indian plate continues to press into the Eurasian plate. This colossal collision happens so slowly that no single human lifetime could witness the change. Yet the mountains remember everything. Each layer of rock whispers of ancient seas, ancient pressure, and ancient worlds buried beneath the weight of time. Sometimes these collisions happen beneath the ocean, where one plate sinks beneath another. You imagine descending into the deep ocean trenches, the cold quiet stretching for miles below. Here, at the subduction zones, plates plunge back into the mantle, melting into magma that may someday rise again as volcanoes. These are places of endless recycling, where old crust is swallowed to create new crust somewhere else. You drift from this slow, powerful compression to the places where plates pull apart, the divergent boundaries. These are the rifts of creation, where molten rock rises to fill the widening gap. You see the mid-Atlantic ridge in your mind, a hidden mountain chain stretching thousands of kilometers beneath the ocean's surface. The seafloor slowly spreads outward, forming new land in a silent, steady rhythm. It is a strange cradle of life, hydrothermal vents glowing like underwater cities, feeding ecosystems built entirely on chemical energy instead of sunlight. These quiet rifts remind you that creation does not always roar. Sometimes it emerges gently, breath by breath. Then you move to the third kind of border, transform boundaries, where plates slide past one another. Here, tension does not build through collision or separation, but through friction. The plates want to move, but the edges catch. They grind, resist, and hold back enormous energy until finally, suddenly, they slip. You feel it before you see it. That burst of release, that violent shudder through the crust. This is where earthquakes are born. These boundaries are neither fully destructive nor creative. They are restless, holding ancient stresses that release without warning. They form long scars on the surface of the earth, some running through deserts, some beneath oceans, some beneath the very places humans build their homes. You pause in the quiet between these movements, sensing how interconnected everything truly is. The boundaries beneath the planet shape far more than rock. They guide the patterns of life, climate, and oceans. As you drift further into this awareness, your mind wanders across the great plate boundaries of the world. You explore the vast mid-Atlantic ridge once more, imagining the slow motion that widens oceans inch by inch. You picture volcanic ridges glowing faintly beneath the sea, releasing minerals into the water, nurturing life where no sunlight reaches. In these shadowed worlds, entire ecosystems flourish, proof that life adapts, transforms, and finds a way even in the most unexpected corners of the planet. Then your thoughts move to the Ring of Fire, the fiery circle around the Pacific Ocean where convergent boundaries dominate. You imagine volcanoes rising in arcs, forming island chains shaped by the slow descent of one plate beneath another. Here, the earth melts and rebuilds itself continuously. Old rock becomes new land. Destruction becomes creation. Fire becomes soil, and life returns again and again. You picture mountains rising from these boundaries, shaping the winds that carry storms across continents. You sense how plate motion guides ocean currents, which in turn guide climate, which in turn guides the evolution of plants and animals. Everything, from the tallest tree to the smallest insect, exists in a world shaped by the borders deep beneath the crust. You linger a little longer at the edges of these great boundaries, imagining how the shifting ground beneath your feet influences the world above. Rivers change course when mountains rise. Deserts form when mountains block the rain. New habitats emerge when land lifts or sinks across millennia. You feel the ancient patience of the earth. It does not hurry. It does not slow. It moves at the tempo of stone, steady, immense, and eternal. The boundaries between plates become boundaries between climates, between ecosystems, between eras. Each motion sends ripples through time, influencing the world for millions of years to come. And through all of this, the earth continues its quiet dance, shaping itself, reshaping itself, endlessly, gently, powerfully. You float within this understanding like a traveler watching the earth breathe. Beneath you, the borders of the planet stretch, collide, drift, and tremble. They are ancient lines of stress and strength, where stories of stone are still being written. And slowly, softly, you begin to feel the next chapter forming. The story of how these tensions break, how the earth releases its long-held energy, how the crust trembles and the world above feels the echo. You are ready now. Ahead lies the whispering world of earthquakes. You settle once more into stillness, letting your breath fall into its familiar, slow rhythm. Around you, the world feels calm. So calm that it's hard to imagine anything beneath the surface could ever stir. Yet you know now that the earth carries ancient tensions under its crust, held along those restless borders where plates meet and resist. In that tension, a quiet story waits. Earthquakes begin long before they are felt. They start with the slow grip of friction along a fault, an invisible boundary carved deep within rock layers. Two pieces of the earth want to move past one another, but their rough edges hold fast. Year after year, pressure builds. Stone bends. Stress thickens like a held breath. You imagine yourself drifting down beneath the ground, passing through soil, through the dark layers of rock, into the cool, silent depths where the fault lies hidden. There is no sound here, only stillness and the long memory of stone. You sense how the rock strains softly under weight, holding back a force that grows grain by grain, crystal by crystal. This is the earth waiting. You hover near the fault, feeling the tension as a gentle hum, too faint for humans to hear, but present all the same. It reminds you of a drawn bowstring, pulled tight but not yet released. At first, it seems nothing could disturb this ancient patience. But you know what happens next, even if the earth itself does not predict when. The moment of release comes suddenly. A single patch along the fault gives way. The locked surfaces slip, and in the span of a heartbeat, the strain that built for decades or centuries breaks free. You feel it not as violence, but as a great exhale. Energy ripples outward through the rock in waves, elastic waves, born from the sudden movement. First come the P waves, the primary waves that move with compressions and stretches, like sound traveling through stone. They arrive quickly, slipping through rock with soft urgency, carrying the first whisper of the earthquake to the surface. Then follow the S waves, slower and more swaying. They move side to side, shaking the ground with a deeper, rolling motion. These waves are what humans feel most strongly. They wrap around buildings, trees, and mountains, reminding all living things that the planet beneath them is alive. But earthquakes are not only about shaking. They tell stories about the rocks they travel through. You imagine the waves passing through different layers: dense granite, soft sediment, ancient volcanic rock, each layer coloring the vibration in its own way. Like music traveling through different walls, the sound changes, the motion shifts. You rise gently toward the surface again. Above you, soil loosens, water trembles, and roots quiver as the waves pass by. You picture a glass of water on a table, the surface rippling in delicate rings long before the true shake is felt. Even small things feel the Earth's movement long before humans recognize what is happening. Earthquakes vary in size, some barely noticeable, some reshaping entire regions. Yet each one begins the same way, with a fault that slips, releasing the patient stress held within the crust. The Earth is not angry. It is adjusting, breathing, settling into new shapes formed by the ceaseless drift of its plates. You drift outward, imagining the familiar landscapes shaped by these tremors. Riverbeds shift, valleys deepen, cliffs break away to reveal fresh stone that hasn't seen sunlight in millions of years. Earthquakes can lift coastlines or lower forests, changing the map in moments. But even in their suddenness, they belong to a long, calm rhythm. Most of the time, they are simply the earth doing what it has always done. You picture slow-motion footage of a fault line slipping, two blocks of rock finally breaking free of each other. In reality, the movement is often just a few centimeters, yet the energy released can ripple across continents. You imagine the wealth of time stored in that tiny shift, years of pressure released in seconds. As you reflect on these moments of release, you begin to sense how the earth constantly balances tension and motion. Just like your own body, which holds stress and lets it go, the crust gathers strain and releases it. It is not anger, not destruction. Simply the planet returning to equilibrium, one tremor at a time. And even after an earthquake ends, the story is not finished. The crust adjusts, settling into its new shape. Small aftershocks whisper through the rock as the fault relaxes. These smaller quakes are like the soft echoes of a large breath, fading but still present as the earth calms itself. You imagine walking through a forest moments after a tremor. Leaves fall gently from branches. Birds take flight. A few stones shift on the ground. Then silence returns. Soft, deep, and almost comforting. The earth is steady again, its tension eased for now. Now your thoughts drift to the tool scientists use to listen to these tremors. Seismographs. You picture a fine needle drawing delicate waves on a scrolling sheet of paper, each motion a reflection of a movement deep underground. These instruments turn the earth's shaking into visual poetry, lines rising and falling in patterns as unique as fingerprints. Through these recordings, scientists understand where earthquakes begin, how waves travel, and what the crust looks like beneath our feet. Each tremor is like a tap against the earth, sending vibrations that reveal hidden structures, buried mountains, ancient faults, layers of long-lost rock. You let yourself imagine the earth as a vast drum, with earthquakes acting as gentle strikes that allow scientists to study the interiors they cannot see. These waves travel through the mantle, refract around the core, and come back altered, carrying deep secrets to the surface. You picture this inner world as a place of slow currents and rising heat, where the movement of the mantle slowly guides the plates above. It is wondrous to think that the same forces that create earthquakes also build mountains, spread oceans, and move continents. Earthquakes remind you that the ground beneath you is not a solid, unchanging surface. It is a moving, breathing shell riding on deeper currents. Every tremor, large or small, is a thread in the story of a planet constantly becoming itself. You rest in this thought, the quiet truth that even the most powerful events arise from long, slow processes deep within the earth. And as you breathe, you feel a soft anticipation. Because earthquakes do more than move the crust. They unlock doors to even deeper worlds. Worlds of molten rock, volcanic fire, and rising mountains. You sense that your journey is about to lead you downward again, into a place both fiery and transformative. The earth has shown you its tension, its release, and its patient reshaping. Now, it is ready to show you what rises from those deep forces. You turn gently toward that next story. The story of fire beneath the crust, the story of volcanoes. You stand at the quiet edge of a world shaped by forces you cannot see. The air is still, cool against your skin, and the ground beneath you feels steady and familiar. Yet you know, because the earth has been whispering to you through each chapter, that far below your feet, heat flows and rocks soften, moving with patient certainty. And tonight, that hidden heat reveals its brightest doorway, the volcano. You picture yourself walking toward a volcano not as a wanderer seeking danger, but as someone approaching a sleeping giant with deep respect. There is no fear in you, only wonder. The volcano rises like a vast, ancient monument, shaped by centuries of breath and fire. Its sides slope gently in some places, sharply in others, each angle telling a story of eruptions long past. You feel its presence as something alive yet peaceful, a mountain with a warm pulse deep inside. As you come closer, you sense a faint hum beneath the ground. It is not threatening. It is a reminder that this mountain is connected to the mantle's slow dance, to the convection currents that rise and fall like breaths in the planet's chest. Heat from those currents melts rock, creating magma, a glowing mixture of minerals and gases. That magma rises upward because it is lighter than the surrounding solid rock, just as a warm balloon drifts through cooler air. You imagine the magma as lantern light traveling through hidden passages. Channels form where rocks crack and bend, and the molten glow slips through them, gathering in chambers beneath the volcano. These magma chambers are vast, patient reservoirs. Some stay quiet for thousands of years. Others fill and empty like tides. Standing at the base of the volcano in your mind's eye, you feel as though you're listening to a distant heartbeat. Every volcano has its rhythm. Some erupt often and gently, letting lava flow like slow rivers that carve new paths across the land. Others wait silently for centuries, building pressure grain by grain until a single moment changes the shape of the world. You picture the air warming near the summit as heat rises from deep within. Volcanoes give hints before they speak. Small earthquakes ripple through the ground as magma shifts. Gases escape through cracks, steam, carbon dioxide, sulfur, each one a soft sigh from the Earth's interior. The mountain becomes restless in ways subtle to humans but obvious to the patient stone. And then, in your imagination, the eruption begins. But it does not appear as chaos. Instead, you watch it unfold like a slow, powerful release, an exhale the Earth has held for far too long. The ground trembles. A deep, resonant sound rises from the heart of the mountain, low and steady. And from the crater, a plume of ash lifts into the sky like a gray blossom unfurling at dawn. You stand at a safe distance, watching the spectacle with awe rather than fear. The ash rises in swirling layers, each carrying tiny fragments of rock torn from the volcano's throat. Some particles are light enough to drift for miles. Others fall quickly, tapping softly against the ground. Then comes the glow. Lava emerges, bright, radiant, alive. It flows slowly, almost thoughtfully, forming streams that creep down the mountainside. You imagine the lava cooling as it moves, crust forming on the surface while the interior remains molten. This cooling creates new rock, new land, new shapes the world has never seen before. You watch the birth of a landscape in real time. Volcanoes, you realize, are not only destructive, they are creators. Most of the continents you know, the islands scattered across the oceans, even the minerals within your own body. Many arose from ancient volcanic activity. Volcanoes release nutrients into the soil, feed ecosystems, and build mountains that later shape climate and life. They renew the earth as much as they reshape it. You imagine the formation of a volcanic island rising from an ocean floor. For thousands of years, magma erupts repeatedly, building layer upon layer of hardened stone until it reaches the surface. One day, the waves part around something new. A fresh island, warm and steaming, ready to welcome life. Over time, seeds land there, carried by wind or drifting wood. Birds arrive. Plants take root in the nutrient-rich soil. What began as fire becomes a sanctuary of green and water and life. Your thoughts drift next to different kinds of volcanoes, each with its own personality. You picture shield volcanoes, broad and gentle, with slow, flowing lava that spreads wide across the land. You imagine stratovolcanoes, tall and steep, formed by alternating layers of ash and hardened magma. Each type shapes its surrounding world differently, just as each river or forest carries its own character. Then your mind moves deeper into the chemistry of magma itself. Some magma is rich in silica, making it thick and sticky, trapping gases within. These volcanoes erupt explosively, releasing ash and pumice into the skies. Other magma is low in silica, smooth and fluid, allowing gases to escape easily and producing gentle lava flows. You feel a quiet fascination at how such tiny chemical differences can shape entire mountains, landscapes, and histories. As you stay with the volcano in your mind, the eruption slows. The plume thins. The lava glows less brightly as it cools. The mountain exhales its final breaths of steam, and then silence returns. But it is a different silence from before. The mountain has changed. New land has formed. Fresh patterns trace the slopes. The air smells of minerals and warm stone. The world feels renewed. You sit with this idea, the idea that creation often requires release. Just as the earth must let go of its internal pressure to reshape its surface, you too have moments where release allows growth. The volcano becomes a metaphor in your mind, gentle and quiet despite its power. It teaches you that fire can build, that heat can create, and that deep forces can give rise to new beginnings. Your thoughts drift outward, imagining volcanoes around the globe. Some lie along subduction zones, where one plate sinks beneath another, melting into new magma. Others rise above hot spots, places where plumes of heat rise straight from the mantle, forming chains of islands as plates slowly move above them. You picture Hawaii growing this way, each island a snapshot of volcanic history. Volcanoes are windows, you realize, windows through which the earth briefly reveals its inner world. In those moments, the deep mantle touches the sky. Rock that has not seen the surface in millions of years suddenly breathes open air. And as it cools, it becomes part of the crust again, ready to join the slow drift of the plates above. You sit quietly with this image. The cycle of stone rising, cooling, drifting, melting, and rising again. A cycle as old as the earth itself. As night settles over your thoughts, you feel a gentle turning inside you, an awareness that the story of volcanoes is deeply connected to something larger. These fiery mountains are part of the same dance that pulls continents apart and pushes them back together. Their eruptions are both announcements and whispers of the Earth's ongoing transformation. And with that realization comes the next question. If volcanoes speak for the deep mantle, what speaks for the drifting continents themselves? You feel the story shifting gently toward that next mystery, toward the quiet wandering of the land beneath your feet, toward the drifting continents and the world they shape. You begin this chapter with a sense of quiet wonder, letting yourself imagine the world as it once was, one single, connected landmass resting on the surface of a young and restless earth. This place, known as Pangaea, feels almost like a dream now, a memory tucked deep into the planet's long story. You picture it stretching across the globe, surrounded by a warm, ancient ocean, its edges shaped by forces that move too slowly for any living being to notice. You breathe softly as you imagine how this great supercontinent began to shift, not in sudden jolts but in slow, drifting motions measured across millions of years. As you linger in this imagination, you feel how vast time becomes. What seems solid and unmoving in your daily life, continents, mountains, coastlines, begins to feel fluid, almost gentle. You picture the earth beneath you not as a fixed stage but as a floating surface guided by deeper currents. Through this softened view, the idea of drifting continents becomes easier to hold. Landmasses quietly wandering like rafts on a hidden sea. You let your mind drift to that hidden sea now, the layer of the mantle where rock, warmed by the earth's inner heat, flows ever so slowly. Its currents create a steady push, nudging the plates above it with patient hands. You imagine this movement as a calm, rhythmic tide, one that continues even when nothing on the surface seems to change. Beneath forests, beneath cities, beneath entire oceans, the plates continue their ancient, deliberate journey. You picture Africa slowly parting from South America, a separation that began more than 100 million years ago. You imagine the moment not as a dramatic tear but as a very gentle unzipping, one that created a rift where magma rose and solidified, forming new crust that would grow into the Atlantic Ocean. This ocean, wide and filled with life, began with a slow opening, almost too small for early creatures to notice. Yet over time, it grew into one of the largest expanses of water on Earth. You marvel at how something so vast began as something so subtle. As you breathe in, you turn your attention toward the slow closing motions as well. Not all plates drift apart. Some move toward one another with the same patience. You picture India drifting northward like a solitary island, moving steadily for millions of years before meeting the great southern edge of Eurasia. The collision lifted rock into the sky, forming the Himalayas, mountains still rising today. You imagine standing at their base, feeling the earth quietly continue its work, layer by layer, inch by inch. Continents drift in many directions. Some move apart, Some collide, some slide past each other like gentle brushes of stone. You imagine them as characters in an age-old dance, stepping forward, stepping back, turning in slow spirals that take millions of years to complete. Nothing about their motion is rushed. Their wandering feels natural, like the rise and fall of your own breath. You begin to notice how this drifting has shaped the world you know. The climate of each region, the currents of the oceans, the winds that cross continents, all have been guided by the arrangement of land and sea. When continents move, coastlines shift, and the patterns of warmth and cold adjust with them. You picture the world as a balanced system, always tuning itself as the plates wander. Deserts form where mountains block moisture. Rainforests grow where warm winds meet oceans. Ice sheets form where poles drift into colder zones. Every shift in the land creates a shift in the life that follows. You see now how drifting continents influence life in quieter ways as well. When landmasses separate, species become isolated, evolving in different directions. When continents meet again, these once separated forms encounter each other anew, blending ecosystems or reshaping them entirely. You imagine early mammals exploring new territories as continents slowly reconnected, their paths shaped not by choice but by the movement of the Earth itself. As you settle deeper into this thought, you realize that drifting continents are not just a geological process. They are a story of change, separation, and reunion. They tell a tale much like the rhythms of your own life, where things move apart and come together in patterns you sometimes understand only in hindsight. The Earth's drifting becomes a quiet metaphor, one that gently mirrors your own journey through time. You reflect on how slow this motion is, how continents move only centimeters each year, a pace so soft that even a lifetime is not enough to witness the change. Yet across millions of years, these centimeters reshape oceans, redirect rivers, raise mountains. The smallness of the movement does nothing to diminish its power. You sense a calming reassurance in this. Slow change can still transform the world. Your awareness lingers on the present moment, imagining the continents as they are now, still drifting, still guided by currents beneath them. Africa is moving toward Europe. Australia is drifting northward. North America continues its journey west. These motions are so gentle you cannot feel them, yet so persistent that they are writing the future landscape. You picture this distant future gently, without urgency. You imagine continents drifting closer until new supercontinents may form, vast stretches of land gathering under new skies. You imagine coastlines shifting like slow brushstrokes, painting patterns the Earth has not yet known. Forests may rise where deserts once lay. New seas may open quietly in places that are now mountains or plains. Across this imagined world, life will adapt as it always has, shaped softly by the path of the land beneath it. You allow yourself to drift even farther into possibility. Perhaps a new version of Pangaea will form, bringing the continents into one broad, connected shape. Or perhaps they will gather in clusters, forming new arrangements that guide ocean currents and wind patterns in ways no one can predict. Whatever the future holds, it unfolds in the same patient rhythm that moves the plates today. As you breathe into this thought, you feel a warmth settle through you, a calm acceptance that the world is always changing, even when it appears still. The continents beneath your feet are part of an endless journey, one that began long before you and will continue long after. Their drifting becomes a reminder that change need not be hurried to be meaningful. It simply needs time. You begin this chapter by breathing in the quiet truth that the Earth never stops shaping itself. Even now, as you sit in stillness, the planet's surface continues to rise, sink, crumble, and rebuild. Oceans deepen, mountains lift themselves slowly toward the sky, and valleys stretch quietly across the land. Every landscape you know, every shoreline, every hill, every ridge and plain, is part of a story millions of years in the making. Tonight, you trace that story gently, letting it unfold like a whispered memory of stone and water. You imagine standing at the edge of a coastline at dawn. The sky is soft, the ocean calm. The waves come in slow breaths, touching the shore with the gentlest insistence. Each wave carries grains of sand, bits of rock, tiny fragments of mountains worn down over ages. You watch the water withdraw, leaving small patterns etched into the sand. Patterns shaped by forces so patient they feel almost timeless. This is erosion, one of the Earth's quietest sculptors. Wind, water, and ice are artists that never rush. Over thousands of years, they carve canyons, smooth riverbeds, and polish cliffs. You picture a river flowing around a bend, its motion steady and unhurried. With every passing moment, the river lifts particles of sediment, carrying them downstream like stories gathered and retold. Over time, the river deepens its path, turning a simple groove into a vast canyon. You breathe softly as you imagine the Colorado River carving the Grand Canyon. One grain at a time. Millions of years of movement. Millions of years of quiet persistence. Then you shift your attention upward toward mountains. Mountains rise where the earth folds or fractures under the slow movement of tectonic plates. Some mountains form as plates collide, pushing rock upward in great, rumpled layers. Others grow from volcanic activity, built by repeated eruptions that stack hardened lava into towering peaks. No matter how they form, mountains are monuments to pressure, heat, and time. You picture the Himalayas again, remembering how India pressed into Eurasia, lifting rock into the sky. Even now, those mountains continue to rise, just a few millimeters each year, reaching higher with each passing century. Yet even as mountains rise, erosion works patiently to wear them down. Wind whittles their edges. Rain carves channels down their slopes. Glaciers shave their summits. In this gentle tug-of-war between uplift and erosion, mountains find their shape. They grow, crumble, and grow again in a continuous cycle of becoming. You let this insight settle. Nothing on the Earth's surface is ever truly finished. Next, your thoughts drift toward glaciers. Rivers of ice that move slowly across land, shaping everything beneath them. You imagine a glacier creeping forward, thick and silent, carrying rocks frozen into its body. As it advances, it grinds the land beneath like a sculptor's tool, carving deep valleys with smooth, U-shaped curves. When the ice retreats, these valleys remain, filled with lakes or winding rivers. You picture Norway's fjords, steep cliffs rising from calm water, reminders of glaciers that once carved their way through mountains. Now your attention returns to the oceans, to their depth, to their power, to the hidden landscapes beneath their surface. Most of Earth's mountains, ridges, and valleys lie below the sea. You imagine drifting downward into this deep world, where sunlight fades and pressure grows. The seafloor stretches in vast plains, interrupted by steep trenches and enormous underwater mountain chains. The mid-ocean ridge, a continuous volcanic mountain range, circles the globe like a stitched seam in the ocean floor. It grows where tectonic plates pull apart, allowing magma to rise and solidify. You imagine fresh crust forming here, warm, dark, and new, only to drift outward slowly over millions of years. In other places, old oceanic crust sinks back into the mantle through deep trenches. You picture one plate bending downward, disappearing into darkness, carrying ancient rocks toward the Earth's interior. Their heat remelts them, returning their material to the cycle of creation. Everything you've seen tonight, mountains rising, rivers carving, glaciers grinding, oceans deepening, connects back to this movement of plates. The Earth sculpts itself through processes that work together like gentle instruments in a long, quiet symphony. You pause and imagine the planet as an artist with infinite patience. It has no hurry. It has no deadline. It simply shapes and reshapes its surface in soft, steady rhythms. Your awareness drifts now to deserts, vast landscapes shaped by wind rather than water. You picture dunes shifting in slow waves, each grain of sand caught in air currents, lifted and set down again. The desert becomes a moving sculpture, always changing, always reforming its contours. Wind, though invisible, becomes a powerful hand in the Earth's art. Then you shift your attention toward coastlines again. You imagine the tide coming in, bringing waves that nibble at cliffs, smoothing stones into pebbles. Over time, coastlines retreat or advance, never holding a single shape for long. You picture headlands crumbling as the sea wears them away, while beaches grow broader as sediments arrive from distant rivers. Now your thoughts move upward to the sky. Rain falls, collects in streams, and rushes down mountainsides, carrying with it the stories of the land. Every drop of water participates in shaping the earth. Even gentle rain slowly dissolves minerals, giving rivers their character and oceans their chemistry. You realize now that the sculpting of Earth is not simply a geological process. It is a relationship between stone, water, wind, and time. Each element shapes the others. Each element responds. Mountains influence where rain falls. Oceans influence the temperature of winds. Winds carve deserts that later shape vegetation and life. Everything touches everything else. As this understanding settles in you, you feel a sense of peace. The world is not static. It is alive in slow, expansive ways. You are held by a planet that is always becoming. Landscapes that seem eternal. The mountains you admire, the valleys where you travel, the coastlines where you stand, are temporary strokes in a much larger painting. They are beautiful not because they last forever, but because they exist in a cycle of endless renewal. You imagine standing at the edge of a mountain lake formed by an ancient glacier. The water is still. The mountains reflected in its surface seem immovable. Yet you know now that even these peaks are slowly shifting, rising, and wearing down. You feel comfort in the thought that change is natural, not something to fear. The earth transforms gently, patiently, continuously. And as this chapter softens toward its end, you begin to sense the larger question waiting ahead. If landscapes are shaped by drifting continents and the forces beneath them, how has this slow, powerful sculpting shaped life itself? You rest in that quiet wonder, feeling the next chapter opening like a soft, thoughtful door. You begin this chapter by letting your breath settle, slow and easy, as if matching the rhythm of the planet beneath you. You might not always notice it, but your life, every step, every landscape you've ever seen, every climate you've ever felt, has been shaped by the drifting of continents. The Earth's restless crust has guided winds and oceans, sculpted ecosystems, and nudged evolution along patient pathways. And in this quiet moment, you start to sense how your existence is tied to motions that began long before your ancestors, long before any creature with eyes or limbs or lungs. You imagine the Earth long before humans, before mammals, even before the lush forests and crawling insects. You picture a world where the continents are fused together, joined in a single grand supercontinent called Pangaea. The land stretches in one massive shape, ringed by an enormous ocean called Panthalassa. The climate is strange, harsh in places, mild in others, and life gathers mostly along the coasts, where water brings its soothing balance. You breathe slowly, realizing that even this ancient arrangement, so distant and unfamiliar, is part of your story. For when Pangaea later breaks apart, like a slow and gentle tearing of paper, it begins to create the world you know. The continents drift away from one another, sometimes inching forward, sometimes rotating, sometimes colliding with new neighbors. Ocean currents shift, winds change, climates transform, and every creature living at that time must adapt to the new world being shaped beneath their feet. You picture the slow separation of the continents, like friends parting ways not out of sorrow, but to grow their own identities. Africa drifts, South America drifts, North America drifts, and the great lands of Eurasia and Antarctica journey to their own corners of the world. They do not rush. They do not hurry. They move at the pace of fingernails growing, and yet over millions of years, this quiet pace alters everything. You imagine how oceans widen between them, becoming the blue expanses we know today. Ocean water circulates in new patterns, distributing heat differently. Warm currents reach cooler places. Cold currents sink into warmer ones. And with each change, climates shift. Deserts appear in new regions. Rainforests flourish elsewhere. Mountain ranges rise and create shadows where rain cannot pass. Entire ecosystems emerge or fade simply because continents drift by a few centimeters each year. You breathe softly as you take in the gentle truth that life is not separate from the Earth's movements. It responds to them, leans into them, and grows within the spaces they shape. Now you imagine life at the edges of shifting continents. Picture the long coasts where shallow seas rise and fall, creating wetlands that become nurseries for new species. Imagine the rivers formed by mountains that emerged from ancient collisions, carrying minerals into the oceans and setting the stage for bursts of new life. You imagine creatures adapting to colder climates when continents wander toward the poles, and others thriving in warm, lush environments closer to the equator. You feel the slow poetry in this, how every form of life is gently guided by a planet that never stops moving. You think of the dinosaurs wandering across lands that once were joined. They roam from one end of the supercontinent to the other, thriving in open spaces and warm climates. But as the continents begin to shift apart, their worlds separate slowly. Populations become isolated, climates change around them, and evolution begins to carve new shapes, new species, new possibilities. The Earth, with its drifting ground, is almost like an artist drawing different lines on a canvas, giving life new paths to explore. Then you imagine the rise of mammals, still humble and small at first, scurrying under the shadows of giants. As continents drift further, mammals adapt to environments that transform around them. Forests spreading, mountains rising, deserts stretching. When the dinosaurs eventually vanish, mammals rise into their empty spaces, shaped, once again, by the landscapes they inhabit. Your breath stays slow as you reflect on the incredible patience of these changes. Millions of years pass. Islands form, inviting new species to evolve in isolation. Land bridges appear temporarily during ice ages, allowing animals to wander into new continents. Then the ice melts, the bridges disappear, and species once connected become separate once more. Tectonics, climate, evolution, all moving together in a slow, intertwined dance. And throughout this history, the Earth continues its quiet shaping. You feel a subtle sense of wonder bloom inside you as you imagine how humans eventually arrive. Our ancestors migrate across shifting landscapes, following rivers created by tectonic uplift, settling in valleys carved by ancient collisions, living in climates shaped by drifting continents. Even the fertile soils of some of the world's earliest civilizations formed from volcanic ash, spread softly across the ground after ancient eruptions. You picture early humans walking across mountain foothills, mountains that exist only because two tectonic plates met long before any human walked the earth. You imagine them following coastlines shaped by rising and falling land. You picture them settling near rivers that flow because mountains stand in particular places. The Earth's deep motions guide where people live, how they farm, how they trade, how they survive. Even now, the distribution of life, trees, animals, climates, entire ecosystems, is a reflection of tectonic motion. You think of the Amazon or Congo rainforests flourishing in places where continental drift placed warm, moist air currents. You imagine the Sahara existing in part because Africa drifted to its current position beneath the influence of global winds. You imagine the Himalayas, rising from the slow collision of India and Eurasia, shaping monsoon patterns that feed more than 1 billion lives today. And you feel a softness in knowing that the food you eat, the air you breathe, the landscapes you love, they all trace back to a planet that has been slowly rearranging its surface since long before any life appeared. Your mind drifts to the oceans, where tectonics also shape life through mid-ocean ridges and deep-sea trenches. At the ridges, warm water rich with minerals flows from hydrothermal vents, nurturing ecosystems that thrive without sunlight. Strange and beautiful creatures, tube worms, glowing microbes, delicate crustaceans, live entirely because the Earth's mantle rises and forms cracks in the ocean floor. You breathe slowly, imagining how even in the darkest places, life responds to the Earth's movements with creativity and resilience. And then you think of your own existence, far removed from these early beginnings but still connected. The minerals in your bones once circulated in ancient seas created by drifting continents. The shape of your climate, your seasons, your landscapes, all are gifts from the quiet wandering of tectonic plates. Even the mountains you've seen or the soil beneath your feet carries the memory of deep forces below. As you rest in this awareness, something gentle settles inside you. A feeling that you belong not just to your family or your city or your moment in time, but to a story that spans the planet's entire life. You breathe softly again, feeling your connection to deep time. You imagine the Earth continuing its slow drift, continents inching along like thoughtful travelers, oceans changing shape, mountains rising and eroding, life adapting again and again just as it always has. And you feel comfort in this long, steady motion, a reminder that change can be slow, natural, and deeply beautiful. The chapter begins to close, not abruptly, but like a sunset that lingers on the horizon. You let the thought settle in your mind, that your own life is carried by currents of time and movement older than memory. Forces that have shaped the world also shape you, gently and patiently. And as your thoughts soften, you feel a new curiosity awakening, a quiet question rising like a distant tide. If the Earth's motions have shaped everything that has been, what new worlds might they shape in the ages to come? A question that leads you softly toward the next chapter, the future of Earth's moving skin. You begin this chapter with a quiet breath, letting the present dissolve into something vast and gentle. The Earth beneath you feels steady, but you now understand that its stillness is an illusion. The crust moves even now, inch by inch, guided by slow forces that will continue long after your lifetime. As you rest, you imagine the future unfolding like a soft horizon. Continents drifting, oceans shifting, and landscapes rising and fading in rhythms beyond human memory. There is no urgency in these visions, only patience, only the steady promise of change. You picture the Earth a few million years from now. Not much has changed to the human eye. Coastlines look familiar, mountains still stand, and the shapes of continents remain recognizable. But if you zoom with the gentle eye of deep time, you see the cracks widening where plates drift apart. You see mountain ranges lifting a little higher. You see islands forming above newborn volcanoes. The world changes like a long inhale and exhale, measured in centuries instead of seconds. You imagine Africa continuing its slow northward journey, inching toward Europe. In time, perhaps tens of millions of years, the Mediterranean Sea may close, squeezed shut like a soft curtain pulled together. New mountains may rise where the waters once lay, forming fresh ridges that tower toward the sky. You think of how the Himalayas formed in a similar way, and how the Earth will someday echo that uplift again, creating landscapes our distant descendants may marvel at. You feel how calm this process is, nothing hurried, nothing rushed. Then you drift your thoughts to the Atlantic Ocean. You imagine it widening as the Americas drift farther from Europe and Africa. The ocean becomes a little broader each year, its deep waters carrying heat around the world. Currents may shift, changing climates in ways slow enough to be stories, not shocks. You picture distant generations living under new skies, skies shaped by the slow opening of a vast blue basin beneath them. And beneath the Pacific Ocean you sense something different, a kind of inward breath. The plates there continue to sink under their neighbors, slowly shrinking the great ocean. Perhaps in the far future, the Pacific will grow smaller and smaller until continents meet again, creating another supercontinent. Some scientists imagine this new landmass forming deep in the future, thousands of millennia from now. They call it Amasia or sometimes Pangaea Proxima, a new gathering of lands echoing ancient Pangaea. You imagine it without urgency, a world where continents come together, closing old oceans and opening new ones. A world where climates reorganize like pieces shifting gently across a board. Forests may grow in places we never imagined. New deserts may appear. Mountain ranges unimaginable today may rise like ancient guardians. The Earth's surface will breathe in and breathe out, reshaping itself with the same patient motion that has always guided it. You feel yourself drifting with these thoughts, like a traveler gliding through time. You imagine how life might respond. Plants adapting to new winds, animals adjusting to new paths of migration, oceans filling with species shaped by new currents. Life always listens to. The Earth's movements always leans into whatever shape the planet offers. Even humans, or whoever might come after us, will find their way through these shifts, building homes near new coastlines, settling in new fertile valleys, learning the rhythms of a changing Earth. You breathe slowly, imagining a far future where volcanic islands rise from the sea. At first they are bare and black, made of cooling basalt. But in time, seeds find them, carried by wind, washed in by waves, or dropped by birds. The islands green slowly. Soil forms grain by grain. Tiny roots take hold. Entire ecosystems rise where once there was only molten stone. This has happened countless times in Earth's past, and it will happen again. Each new island a quiet story of renewal. Then your thoughts wander deeper into the mantle, where the true engine of tectonics lies. The heat rising from Earth's interior will continue its patient circulation, though it too will slowly fade with time. Millions of years into the future, the Earth will still move. Hundreds of millions of years ahead, the movement may slow. Hundreds more, and the crust may grow thicker, stiffer, less willing to bend. But these changes are so distant, so gentle, they feel like dreams whispered from the far edge of time. You picture continents drifting, colliding, breaking, drifting again, a cycle older than mountains, older than seas. The future will echo the past, but never repeat it exactly. The Earth prefers variation, improvisation, slow artistry. It will not create the same world twice. You let your breath rest in that idea that the future of tectonics is not a threat, but a promise of continued creativity. New landscapes will rise, new oceans will open, new climates will form, and life, as always, will adapt softly, patiently, the way it has for billions of years. Your thoughts drift now to the humans who might stand far in the future, gazing at coastlines that look different from ours. They might feel the rumble of distant earthquakes, just as we do. They might watch volcanoes glow on the horizon, knowing the molten heart of the Earth still whispers upward. They might trace the edges of continents and imagine the world that once was, just as you now imagine the world that will be. And somewhere deep inside them, they might feel the same quiet comfort you feel now, that the Earth is alive in its own way, reshaping itself without hurry, carrying every generation along with gentle steadiness. You breathe slowly. You let your mind settle into the certainty that the planet's future, like its past, will unfold in rhythms too slow for fear, too vast for worry. The Earth will continue to move beneath silent oceans and starlit skies. Continents will drift under ancient constellations, and time itself will flow like a soft river, carrying each chapter of the planet's story into the next. You feel the chapter drawing to a close, not with finality, but with an opening, the sense that each future shape of the Earth is only one moment in a much larger journey. And as your thoughts soften, you begin to return to the present, carrying with you one last, gentle realization. The Earth's slow work has shaped the world around you, but its story is not done. It continues, in every quiet motion beneath your feet, guiding you softly toward the vastness of time still ahead, and toward the final chapter waiting to unfold. You begin this final chapter with a slow inhale, as if drawing the entire journey back toward yourself. The Earth feels steady beneath you, though you now understand how gently deceptive that steadiness is. Even in this moment, the crust shifts in its patient way, carrying continents on rafts of stone and guiding oceans across unseen thresholds. You let that awareness settle in your body, feeling how your stillness rests upon an ancient and ongoing motion, one that has shaped everything you have learned so far. You picture yourself standing somewhere quiet, maybe on a stretch of open land or near the edge of a calm sea. The world around you feels familiar, yet beneath that familiarity lies a history so deep it stretches beyond imagination. Every grain of sand, every mountain shadow, every distant horizon has been sculpted by the planet's slow rearranging. You sense how your feet rest on layers of old worlds, continents that drifted, oceans that opened, valleys that rose from forgotten collisions. In this peaceful moment, you feel connected to all of it. You let your attention drift into the layers of your own memory, recalling how the Earth formed its crust, how the mantle churned like slow-moving currents, how plates drifted and collided through unimaginable spans of time. You remember the deep seas, the fiery volcanoes, the rising mountains, and the trembling earthquakes. You recall how life expanded, shifted, and adapted to the movement of the ground. And now, standing here in the quiet of your mind, You see how your own story is woven into every chapter of the planet's long unfolding. The rhythm of your breathing mirrors the planet's own rhythm. Slow, steady, patient. You imagine your breath flowing in and out like the movement of plates. A drifting, a settling, a constant reshaping that happens gently and without force. You feel the connection between your heartbeat and the planet's hidden heat, the warmth rising upward from Earth's core. It reminds you that even in moments that feel still, there is always motion beneath the surface, inside you, inside the world, inside time itself. You begin to sense how deeply you belong to this planet. Your bones carry elements forged in ancient stars. The air you breathe has been shaped by forests nurtured on shifting continents. The water in your body has traveled through oceans opened by rift zones millions of years old. You are, in a quiet and literal way, part of Earth's story. In this chapter, you rest in that truth, letting it soften everything inside you. Your thoughts drift to the landscapes you know. Hills, coastlines, plains, rivers, and you see them not as fixed features but as moments in motion. The mountains you admire will someday crumble into soft plains. The oceans you've seen will deepen or shift their boundaries. Even the places that feel permanent hold the memory of continents colliding or pulling apart. As you absorb this understanding, you feel something gentle and freeing. The world is changing, and so are you, and there is nothing wrong or frightening about that. You imagine the slow passage of time flowing forward, long after this moment. Continents drift, reshaping climates and ecosystems. Life adapts and evolves, finding new ways to thrive in environments sculpted by deep Earth forces. And through all of it, the planet continues its quiet work, steady and unhurried. You feel comfort in that patience, knowing that change on this scale is natural, woven into the very structure of Earth's being. You let your awareness widen, thinking of all the generations who came before you. People who stood on the same drifting crust without knowing how it moved. People who climbed mountains formed by ancient collisions, sailed across oceans opened by slow rifting, or cultivated soil enriched by volcanic ash. Their lives, like yours, were shaped by forces they could not see. And now you understand those forces, which creates a soft connection between you and every person who ever walked the earth. You consider the future again, not with anxiety but with openness. The planet will continue shifting long after your lifetime, and that continuity brings a sense of peace. You imagine distant generations looking at coastlines subtly different from yours, living under skies shaped by climates that evolve slowly across ages. You imagine them exploring landscapes that rise where old seas once lay, or walking through forests rooted in soil formed from mountains worn down over eons. The Earth carries each generation forward, offering new chapters without erasing the ones that came before. You return now to your own body, feeling the weight of yourself resting on the moving planet. Your breath deepens as you sense the connection between your inner stillness and the Earth's outer motion. You understand that stillness is a temporary pause within a larger unfolding. Just as tectonic plates pause only to shift again, your moments of quiet are part of a natural cycle. Times to rest, times to change, times to drift into new spaces within yourself. You let this realization settle gently, like sediment layering softly over time. You think of everything the Earth has taught you. Patience, resilience, movement without hurry, creation that comes from pressure and release. You think of mountains rising not out of violence, but out of long, slow uplift. You think of oceans forming from separation that makes room for new life. You think of volcanoes renewing landscapes with fresh stone. These processes begin to feel like metaphors for your own life. You feel a soft gratitude for the Earth's story, the story that shaped continents, shaped climates, shaped life, and has quietly shaped you. You recognize the beauty in deep time, how it stretches far beyond individual lifetimes yet holds them within its vast continuity. As you breathe, you sense that the planet's slow rhythms echo inside you, giving you permission to move at your own pace, to shift, to rest, to grow in ways that do not require urgency. You imagine yourself standing again in the quiet place where this chapter began. The ground beneath your feet feels alive, not in a loud or dramatic way, but in a steady, supportive way. You understand now that this support comes from billions of years of movement and transformation. You feel safe in that knowledge, grounded in a world that is ancient yet always becoming something new. The chapter begins to close, but not tightly. It settles like dusk settling over a familiar landscape, gradually, gently, without finality. You rest in the awareness that the Earth's story continues, and your story moves with it. You are part of a planet that drifts through time with patience and grace, reshaping itself while holding space for every life that grows upon it. And as your breath softens, you drift into one last quiet thought, a thought that feels like a doorway rather than an ending. Even in stillness, you are moving. Even in rest, you are part of the Earth's slow and endless motion. You are carried gently through time, held by a planet that never stops becoming, just like you.